Hi, I'm Daniel, 42, and 3 months ago I walked out of the house I had called home for almost 15 years, for good. My stepdaughter, Camila, had just looked me in the eye and said I wasn't her real father, those words so cold, so sharp how sliced through 20 years of love, effort, and sacrifice as if they were nothing. But to understand how I got to that moment, you have to go back to when it all began. When I met Clara, she was already a mother. Camila was 5, a tiny whirlwind with a stubborn personality and a smile that could melt concrete. Clara told me up front that she was raising her daughter alone. The father, Javier, had disappeared when Camila was just a few months old. No calls, no visits, not a single birthday card. The guy had vanished into thin air. I remember thinking, how do you abandon something that small? But I didn't say it out loud. I just nodded and told her I admired her strength. What I didn't realize then was that, by falling in love with Clara, I was also stepping into the role of a father, one I would come to take more seriously than anything else in my life. At first, Camila was shy. She'd peek at me from behind Clara's legs when I came over, refusing to talk but secretly listening to everything. I started small. A new coloring book, a visit to the park, a silly face across the dinner table. Slowly, her walls came down. Then one day, completely out of the blue, she called me Dad. I remember that moment perfectly. We were at the park. She had fallen and scraped her knee. I picked her up, cleaned the wound, and she clung to me like I was her whole world. "Thanks, Dad," she whispered. I froze. I didn't correct her. I didn't need to. That single word changed everything. From that day forward, I wasn't just Clara's boyfriend. I was Camila's father in every way that mattered. I went to her school recitals. I stayed up helping her with projects she'd left until the last minute. I taught her how to ride a bike and how to tie her shoes. When she had nightmares, she came to my side of the bed. And on the day Clara and I got married, Camila, 8 years old, glowing with excitement, was our flower girl. Just before the ceremony, she tugged my sleeve, stood on her tiptoes, and whispered in my ear, "Now you're really my dad." I cried right there like a fool in a suit. Years passed, and the bond between us only grew stronger. We fought sometimes. The usual teenage drama, slammed doors, eye rolls, but I loved her like my own blood. Eventually, I started the legal adoption process. It took time, paperwork, and patience, but the day the judge signed the papers, it felt like the world had confirmed what I already knew. Camila was my daughter. For 15 years, I believed nothing could break that bond. It all started unraveling the day Javier came back. Camila had just turned 20. She was in college, living with us but spending most of her time out, studying, working part-time, trying to build her adult life. Everything felt stable, ordinary. Until one night, Clara's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, froze, and whispered, "It's him." At first, I didn't even understand. Him who? And then she said it. Javier. I actually laughed, that kind of awkward, disbelieving laugh that comes before anger. "What? He wants to borrow money now." I said. Clara didn't laugh. She showed me the message. "I know it's been a long time. I just want to see my daughter." 15 years of silence, and that was all he wrote. No explanation, no apology. Just, "I want to see my daughter." Clara was furious. She typed out a response right away, told him he had no right, that he'd forfeited fatherhood the day he walked away. I agreed with her completely, but when Camila found out, things went in a direction I never expected. She wasn't angry. She wasn't cold. She was curious. Hopeful, even. "I need to meet him," she said. "I need to know why he left." I tried to be careful with my words. I didn't want to sound controlling. "Cammy, just don't expect too much, okay? Some people don't change. Some people come back because they're bored or guilty, not because they want to make things right." She just looked at me, that same stubborn, determined look I used to love when she was little, and said, "You wouldn't understand. You've always had parents." That stung. I could have told her I was one of her parents, but I bit my tongue. She met with him the following weekend. When she came home, she looked different. He said he was scared back then, she told us. He wasn't ready, but he's changed. He's been thinking about me all these years. I wanted to scream. Thinking about you. What good is that when you're not there? But I kept quiet. I could see how much she wanted to believe him, and that was the beginning of the end. Javier started calling her every day. He took her out to lunch, bought her gifts, made up for lost time with the kind of charm only someone who's never done the hard work of parenting can pull off. I watched her glow when she talked about him, and something inside me, something steady and quiet, began to crack. Soon, she stopped talking to me. No more daily updates, no more hugs. When I asked how her classes were going, she'd shrug or say, "Fine." Then one evening, during dinner, she said it. "I want to spend this weekend with my real dad." The world seemed to tilt for a moment. My fork clattered on the plate. Clara went pale. I wanted to say something rational, something mature, but all that came out was a choked, "Your real dad." "What am I?" Then she looked at me calmly, without cruelty, but without warmth either. "You're my stepdad, Daniel. You've always known that." And just like that, the title I'd cherished for 15 years, Dad, was gone. After that dinner, everything changed. It was like someone had quietly removed me from the family portrait, and no one even noticed. Camila barely spoke to me. Clara avoided confrontation. She said Camila was just confused, that I needed to give her time. But time didn't heal anything. It only made the silence thicker. I'd walk into the kitchen and find them whispering, and the moment I entered, the conversation would stop. I told myself not to take it personally, but how do you not take something like that personally? Then came that Saturday. Camila was supposed to meet Javier for lunch. She was glowing that morning, new dress, makeup, a nervous excitement that filled the whole house. I watched her pacing near the window, checking her phone every 2 minutes. The hours ticked by. Noon, 2, 4, nothing. Finally, her shoulders slumped. She muttered something and ran upstairs. I heard her door slam. Clara looked at me, helpless. I waited for half an hour before going up. She was sitting on her bed, her mascara smudged, clutching her phone like it held the answer to everything he didn't show. "Huh?" I said quietly. Her eyes shot up, red and angry. "You don't understand. He's trying. He's scared." "Scared?" I snapped. "He's 45 years old, Camila, not 15. Scared is leaving your daughter when she's still in diapers. This is just who he is." She stood up, trembling. "You don't get it. You're not my father. You never were. You're just Mom's boyfriend who played house with me." That word, boyfriend, burned like acid. I felt something inside me snap. Years of patience, pride, fatherly love, all of it boiled over. "Is that what you think? That I did everything just to impress your mother?" I said, my voice shaking. "When I stayed up with you all night when you had the flu, was that for her? When I worked extra shifts to pay your tuition, was that for her too?" She stared at me, unflinching. "You're not my blood. You'll never understand what that means," and that was it. The final blow. I looked at her, and all the years we'd shared, the bedtime stories, the scraped knees, the birthday cakes, they all blurred into nothing. "You know what?" I said finally, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it. "You're right. I'm not your father. Maybe I was just a fool who carried someone else's responsibility. You were a burden I took on because I loved your mother." Nothing more the second the words left my mouth. The silence was deafening. She stared at me, her face crumbling, and then she started sobbing, those deep, broken sobs that echo inside your chest long after you've left the room. Clara appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide with fury. "What did you just say to her?" she shouted. Camila was shaking, whispering through her tears. "I knew it. I knew you never loved me." Clara pointed at the door. "Get out, Daniel. Right now." I didn't argue. I just nodded, went to the bedroom, packed a bag, and walked out. When I reached the street, the night air hit my face. Cold, sharp, almost purify. Behind me, the lights from Camila's window glowed faintly. I imagined her crying, Clara comforting her, both of them hating me. And for the first time in years, I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret. Just the strange calm that comes when you finally stop pretending you belong. The first few days alone felt like stepping into an echo chamber. Every sound, footsteps, kettle boiling. The soft click of the light switch seemed too loud. Like the house was mocking me for the sudden emptiness. I rented a small apartment not far from my old neighborhood. One bedroom, creaky floorboards, the faint smell of paint still clinging to the walls. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I remember unpacking my clothes and realizing half my wardrobe still smelled like the fabric softener Clara used. I threw everything into the washing machine just to erase her scent. That first week, I didn't sleep much. I'd lie awake, replaying that last conversation with Camila. The tears, Claire's voice, my words, those ugly, irreversible words echoing back at me. You were just a burden. God, I'd said that to the girl who once made me handmade Father's Day cards. I told myself she deserved to hear it, but in the quiet, the justification felt hollow. Still, pride is a stubborn thing. I filed for divorce within the week. My lawyer said I had a strong case for a clean break. Clara didn't fight it. In fact, she signed the papers so quickly it almost hurt more. Like she'd been waiting for an excuse to let go. I stopped paying Camilla's tuition and the bills. I wasn't going to keep supporting people who'd thrown me out like trash. Rationally, it made sense. Emotionally, it felt like cutting off a limb. One night, I got drunk enough to scroll through old photos on my phone. There she was, Camila at 8, holding a sparkler, her missing front tooth giving her the goofiest grin. Camila at 12, hugging me after her school play. Camila at 16, rolling her eyes but laughing when I embarrassed her at her birthday dinner. I sat there, phone in hand, and whispered what happened to us. The next afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Hello. There was a pause. Then a voice, small, trembling. It's me, Camila. I froze. I wanted to talk, she said. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. I swallowed hard. Go on. You were right, she said quietly. Javier, he's gone again? He stopped answering. He doesn't pick up my calls. I don't even know where he is. Her voice cracked. I thought he'd changed. I leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling. It didn't surprise me. Not one bit. I'm sorry, she continued, for everything I said, for what I called you. You didn't deserve it. For a second, my throat tightened. I almost said, it's okay, sweetheart. Almost, but then the wall went back up. Sure, I muttered. Now you realize that the man who abandoned you is unreliable. Please don't talk like that, she begged. I just wanted you to know you were right. I stayed silent, my heart fighting my pride, waiting to see which would win. Continue. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Just her breathing uneven, shaky coming through the line. Listen, I finally said, I'm not going to pretend this didn't hurt. You said things, Camila, things I'll never forget. I know, she whispered. I was stupid. No, I said. You're honest. That's what makes it worse. She started crying softly. I could hear the guilt in her voice, and for a moment, something inside me, the part that used to tuck her in, that used to patch up her scraped knees, stirred. Dad, she said between sobs, please. Forgive me? You are my real father. I see it now. Please come back. That word, Dad. It hit me like a hammer to the chest. I felt a lump rise in my throat, my fingers trembling around the phone. For a second, I was back in the park, holding her tiny hand as she called me Daddy for the first time. I wanted to tell her I missed her. I wanted to tell her that I'd give anything to rewind time, but then she said, at least help me with tuition. They sent me a notice you stopped paying. I can't register for next semester unless I clear it. And just like that, the air went out of the room. Everything softened and me turned to stone. So that's what this is, I said quietly. You didn't call because you missed me. You called because you need money. No, she said, her voice breaking. That's not true. I swear. Don't lie to me, Camila. You know what hurts most? It's not that you replaced me. It's that you only come back when you need something. Please don't say that, but I'd already made up my mind. Goodbye, Camila. I hung up before she could answer. The phone buzzed a few times after that calls, messages, but I didn't read any of them. I turned it off, set it on the coffee table, and just sat there, staring at the blank wall in front of me. I didn't feel angry. I didn't even feel sad. I felt empty, like I'd finally confirmed what I'd always feared deep down, that no matter how much love you give, sometimes it just doesn't stick. That night, I poured myself a drink. The city lights flickered through the window, and for the first time in years, I felt nothing tying me to anyone. I was free, or maybe just hollow. And that's where it ends. Daniel, once broken, once certain he'd lost everything, didn't get the fairy tale ending. But he got something quieter, something most people spend their whole lives chasing. Peace without resentment. Love without possession. Forgiveness without words. Camila didn't get her perfect father either. But she found the truth, that real parenthood isn't about who gives you life, but who stays when it's hardest too. They didn't go back to how things were. They couldn't. Some fractures never disappear. They just stop hurting when you finally stop picking at them. So they carried on. Separately but lighter, both changed by the storm they'd survived together. And in the end, that was enough. The real end. The divorce was finalized a few weeks later. No drama, no screaming matches, just signatures and silence. Clara didn't look at me once during the meeting. She just signed, handed the papers to the lawyer, and said, "Take care of yourself, Daniel." Her tone was polite, distant, like I was a neighbor moving away, not the man who'd shared half her life. I left the building with the papers in my hand and a strange calm in my chest. It wasn't relief. It wasn't sadness. It was something colder. Acceptance, maybe. Since then, my life's been simple. I wake up, make black coffee, go to work, come home. No one's waiting for me. No one's asking for anything. The quiet that used to scare me now feels like company. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself thinking about Camila. Not the grown woman who cut me down with words sharper than knives, but the little girl who once made me macaroni necklaces for Father's Day. The one who used to run toward me yelling, "Daddy." At the airport when I came home from work trips, those memories sneak up on me like ghosts. They hurt, but they also remind me that what I gave was real, even if she doesn't remember it that way. People tell you that love conquers everything. It doesn't. Love can't compete with blood or pride, or the stories people tell themselves to make sense of their pain. Camila chose her version of the story, the one where I was just a placeholder, a convenient father until the real one came back. And when that illusion shattered, it was too late for us. Now, when I look out the window at night, I sometimes wonder if she ever thinks of me. If she ever realizes that being a father isn't about DNA, it's about showing up. Again and again when no one else does. But even if she does, it won't change anything, because the day she called me just mom's boyfriend, something inside me died. And when something dies like that, trust, love, the quiet pride of belonging, it never really comes back. So, yeah, I'm a 42-year-old divorced man, living alone in a small apartment, no wife, no kids, no noise. People might call it loneliness. I call it peace. It happened on a rainy Thursday afternoon, the kind of day when even the city feels tired. I was leaving the grocery store, plastic bag in one hand, umbrella in the other, when I saw her. Camila. She was standing across the street, holding her coat closed with one hand, her hair damp from the drizzle. For a second, I thought I was imagining her. But then she looked up and froze to. It had been almost a year since that last call. She crossed slowly, hesitating at every step, as if afraid I might vanish before she reached me. When she finally stood in front of me, I noticed the dark circles under her eyes, the way she clutched her phone like it was a lifeline. "Hi," she said softly. "You look different." "So do you," I replied. My voice came out steadier than I expected. There was a pause, awkward but fragile, like a truce neither of us had the courage to break. "I wanted to tell you," she began. "I finished school. I got a scholarship. I did it without anyone's help." I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips. Good for you, Camila. I thought you'd want to know. Her eyes glistened. And I'm sorry. Not for the money or for what I said that night. I'm sorry for forgetting. For forgetting who was really there for me. Her voice cracked on the last words. I didn't say anything right away. I just stood there, the rain tapping against our umbrellas, watching the girl who once called me Dad try to piece together what was left of us. Finally, I said, "You don't owe me anything. You grew up. That's what kids do." She shook her head. "No, I owe you everything. I just didn't see it until I lost it, and there it was, the apology I'd waited a year to hear. But instead of relief, I felt something gentler. A quiet sadness that it had all taken so long. I stepped forward, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Take care of yourself, kiddo." Her eyes filled with tears. "Can I call you sometimes?" I hesitated, then nodded. Sometimes. We stood there for a moment, to people bound not by blood, but by the ghost of love that had once been enough. Then I turned, walked to my car, and drove away through the rain. For the first time in months, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt whole. 3 years later, Daniel's life had settled into something he never thought possible. Calm. He'd moved to a small coastal town, the kind where mornings smelled like salt and coffee, and everyone knew each other's routines without ever saying a word. He rented a modest house near the water, worked remotely as a consultant, and spent his evenings reading or walking along the beach. No drama, no arguments, just the rhythm of waves and the quiet companionship of solitude. He didn't talk about his past much. Most people assumed he was divorced, some even guessed widowed, but no one ever pressed for details. And he liked it that way. Then one afternoon, as he sat on a bench watching the sea darken with the approaching storm, his phone buzzed. A message. "Camila. Hey, Dad. Just wanted to let you know. I graduated today." He stared at the screen for a long time. It wasn't the first message she'd sent. After that rainy encounter, they'd exchanged a few words now and then, cautious, polite. Holidays, birthdays, slowly, the sharp edges between them had dulled. She never asked for money again, never apologized twice for the same thing. She just kept him updated. He typed back, "I'm proud of you, kid." A few minutes later came the reply, "I know. I always was. I just didn't see it then." He smiled, a small, honest smile that reached his eyes this time. He put the phone away and looked out at the waves, the wind picking up, the world humming its low, endless song. He wasn't her father by blood, but somehow, after everything, he was still the man she reached out to when it mattered, and that was enough. When the rain finally began to fall, Daniel didn't move. He just sat there, letting the water soak through his shirt, eyes on the horizon, feeling, at last, not hollow, not bitter, but quietly, deeply alive. It had been almost 3 years since I last heard from them. 3 years since the day they told me I was strong enough to take care of myself and left me alone after surgery. 3 years since I stopped trying to call, text, or explain. And then, that message. "Your dad isn't doing well. He keeps asking about you." My hands were shaking. I didn't even realize how hard until I saw the little tremors across the screen. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone glowing in my palm like it was something fragile or dangerous. Part of me wanted to throw it across the room. Another part just wanted to hear his voice again. But mostly, I didn't know if I was ready to open that door after finally learning how to close it. I didn't answer right away. I went to work, pretended to focus, but every time I saw father and child together, I felt that sharp pull in my chest. You know, the one that says you still care even when you wish you didn't. That night, I finally replied, "I'll come by tomorrow." The drive to the hospital was silent. No music, no thoughts, just the steady hum of tires and a heartbeat that felt too loud. When I walked into the room, he looked smaller, thinner, weaker. The man who used to tower over me, who used to lift me with one arm, now struggled to turn his head toward the door. "Hey," I said softly. For a moment, he didn't recognize me. His eyes flickered, searching, then softened. "You came." It was 2 words, simple, but they hit like a storm. We didn't talk much at first. Just silence, heavy and full of things we never said. Then, slowly, his hand reached across the blanket, trembling. I hesitated and then took it. He whispered, I wasn't a good father, was I? I didn't know what to say. Anger and forgiveness fought inside me like fire and rain. All those nights alone, the pain, the loneliness, it all came rushing back, but I looked at him and realized. Time had already done most of the punishing. He didn't need my anger, and I didn't need to carry it anymore. So I just said, you did what you thought was right, and for once that was enough. He smiled faintly. You turned out better than I deserve. We sat there until visiting hours ended. When I left, I knew it might be the last time I'd see him, and somehow I was okay with that. A few weeks later, I got another message. This time, from my mom. He passed peacefully. He wanted me to tell you he was proud. I didn't cry. Not right away. Instead, I went for a walk, the kind of long, quiet walk where the world feels distant and everything inside you feels loud. And somewhere between the trees and the fading sun, the tears finally came, not because of guilt, not even because of loss, but because after all the hurt, the silence, and the years of waiting, I finally let go. Now, when people ask about my family, I just smile a little and say, they taught me one thing, that love isn't always shown the way you expect. But it still leaves a mark, and maybe, somewhere beyond all that pain, they finally understood that too. Months passed again. Life felt calm, balanced, quiet in a way I hadn't known before. Then one evening, I got another call. This time, it wasn't from my sister. It was her oldest daughter, Emma. Her voice was shaky. Mom's in the hospital, she said. For a moment, my heart stopped. I drove there without thinking. When I walked in, my sister looked smaller than I remembered, fragile. She smiled weakly. Didn't think you'd come. I said, you're still my sister, and it was true. I wasn't there out of guilt or obligation. I was there because I finally knew how to care without losing myself. She reached for my hand. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry for everything, she whispered. And this time, I believed her. We didn't fix everything that night. Some scars don't fade, they just stop hurting as much. But as I left the hospital, I felt lighter because forgiveness wasn't for her, it was for me. And for the first time in a long time, I knew I could move on without the pain following me home. A week after that conversation, I packed a small box, just some photos, a few books, an old sweater that still smelled like home. It didn't hurt anymore.